and destroying public property. The MP is expected to appear before court tomorrow, one we're all looking forward to. But it seems the bigger issue hasn't even been about the charges, but the tussle between Parliament as an arm of government, which is the legislature, and the police on one hand. Parliament has persistently refused to release the MP for interrogation, citing parliamentary privileges. It appears this will never go away. But this issue has also pitched the two sides in the House against each other already. So does it mean that being an MP puts one above the law? We have more on that. Plus, the last week was a digital one. The Vice President has been detailing what government has done since 2017 to digitize the economy. Some are asking, how does this affect the ordinary Ghanaian? Don't forget, our roads are still claiming lives. 29 precious lives lost last week alone. We have more on this and other big issues, plus the top picks of my guests tonight. We're live on the JoyNews channel, Joy Prime, DSTV channel 421, Go TV is 144. We're on radio also, is Joy 99.7 FM, Love 99.5 FM, and over 30 affiliates across the 16 regions of Ghana. Also on myjoyonline.com. I am Emefa Apau, the journalists, and of course the broadcast journalists. They'll be joining us shortly via Zoom. Quick turnaround. We'll be right back. Please stay with us here on the probe. Welcome back, and this is The Probe. Tonight's edition I'm very excited about because I get to hear the perspective of some selected journalists tonight on The Probe. Is the Editors Forum edition of The Probe. We are probing the big issues, and my guest tonight is Amma Bawa. She's a host of ATL Morning Show. That's on ATL FM in Cape Coast, and I must say she has a lot of fans on social media. A lot of people are talking about her and wanting to hear more from her. Welcome, Amma. Good evening. You have to unmute, Amma.
Hello, Emefa. Good evening, and good evening to your viewers. Thank you very much for this platform.
Thank you very much. And also, my seniors are also joining us. We have Philip Osei-Bonsu, host of Asempa FM's Ekosi Saying. In fact, I must add, CIMG Show of the Year, Ekosi Saying, second time running for 2020. And he's also joining us. Philip, Obi, we all call him. Welcome.
Thank you for having me, and regards to Raymond and Amma as well.
Congratulations once again. And of course, the head of JoyNews Research, Raymond Akwa, joins us as well. Hello, Raymond.
Hello, Emefa. I hope you are doing well.
I am blessed. Thanks for asking, Raymond. Raymond rarely asks how you're doing, so I'm blessed for Raymond to be asking. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. I'm very delighted to have you all on tonight's edition of The Probe. I want to first start by asking what your top picks are for this week, for instance. Amma, you want to take a go at that first?
Sure, Emefa. And I think we seem to have a plethora of issues on Ghana's media landscape that attract our attention. I would go for the issue of unemployment. I guess we had a lot of things to talk about last week regarding some recruitment processes of the immigration and other state agencies, and we were shocked with the number of people that made themselves available for such services. I would also go for the issue of road crashes, the road carnage that we are experiencing, and the staggering figures that are just, looking at us in the face. And as a nation, it looks like we are quite helpless at our wit and we don't know what to do. Then the issue of the government digital agenda is also quite big. So these are my picks.
Great. Raymond, your picks?
So I will start with the fight in Parliament with the police. I mean, not because it's a very big issue, because it actually occupied the time. Most of the conversations centered around what Parliament will do, whether the police will stand the test of time, whether this time around the police can have the fortitude to insist on doing what it wants to do without having to pander or bend over backwards to a government agency, be it Parliament or the executive, and whether or not Parliament as an institution would also be able to withstand the pressure from the police and other institutions, asking it to just make sure it follows what the procedures have been over the period. So that was interesting for me, because it would, if for nothing at all, the way the conversation is going, it would clarify what exactly happens to the partial or qualified immunity that we understand some parliamentarians have been flashing around for a very long time. And again, it would also be a different thought for what the IGP is supposed to do differently.
We'll get into the details, Raymond. We'll get into the details. Maybe you should just list them for me, then we'll get into the details.
So this is number one. Number two is, I dare say, is a recurrent problem, but just that when the numbers once in a while shock us, we get to talk about it once again. That's the road accidents and the most recent happenings on that front.
Okay.
I get tired of talking about an issue which never gets resolved anyway. It's one of those issues like flooding, which is rarely consistent. But this time out, because of the high numbers involved and how the accident happened, it sends some shockwaves down the spine of our people. There is also the other conversation about, I'm referenced unemployment. This has been happening for almost 3 weeks consistently. But it just seems to have been given a lot more impetus with the recruitment agencies coming out. The nursing institution was perhaps the last one to add to the list of institutions basically telling us what they are doing and how they are trying to solve what looks like an unending problem, which we've been trying to deal with for a very long time.
Okay.
So these three largely picks the place for me. There's also the vice president's
digitalization.
Yes, and I found it interesting for one simple reason. The things we've been told consistently are being rehashed, and yet it required virtually every media house in the Republic of Ghana taking it live. It required us treating it like this was the most important agenda for the development of the country. The Marshall Plan of itself, it sounded interesting to me.
Okay, we'll get into the details, Raymond. Thanks. Your top picks also, I've noted them down. Obi, how about you?
I think I would agree with Raymond. The Parliament versus police banter is quite interesting. For governance watchers, for constitutional law students, it speaks to separation of powers, which is a critical tenet of constitutionalism.
Okay.
So Parliament and the police banter is quite interesting. Number two for me will be obviously the Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia lecture at the Ashesi University, also very, very interesting. The reactions and how the conversation has panned out is quite interesting. And the third for me would be, again, the recruitment into the security services. And here's my point. If I watched what happened with the immigration and the prison service, and I juxtapose same to what happened with the Ghana Police Service recruitment, it was clearly a breath of fresh air. We see something new about the Ghana Police Service, and I think it needs to be highlighted for the other agencies to pick lessons from.
Okay, so it appears unemployment runs through all your picks, and then Parliament versus police. Amma didn't go on that, but road crashes also is key, and then digitalization. So since it involves lives, let's start with the road crashes. 29 last week alone, and it appears that the figures keeps increasing. We are on a JoyNews saving lives agenda on that as well for some time now. We've been working with the DVLA amongst others on this, so we always have to report on these numbers, and it's becoming increasingly worrying. Amma, you've had cause to also talk about it. For instance, let's start with you. When you always have to talk about these road crashes, and we've embarked on campaigns, how come we are still losing lives on our roads?
Well, Amifa, it's really stressful, quite a tasking journey, like Raymond said. I mean, normally for our big platform like the media, when an issue comes up like this, I guess that's the satisfaction of every journalist. We talk about it, we move for action, and we want to see a change. And if we talk about losing human lives every day on the road, when we know the causes, it also preempts that we certainly know what to do. I don't remember any stakeholder that has spoken about road accidents, and we've gotten to a point where we lost in the jungle to say we just lost of ideas. We don't know what to do. At almost every point in time, we know what to do. We have enumerated the causes to be, it's either a mechanical problem, that's a vehicular problem, it's either the road, it's either the driver. If we're looking at, is it drunk driving? Is it fatigue? Is it the issue of indiscipline? So a lot of causes have come up, and the difficulty is what to do, because in the line of all these goes to law enforcement. We're looking at regulatory agencies that are supposed to ensure that eventually these causes do not just hang up in the air, but we work with these causes, knowing what to do. So if we look at the issue of the nature of our roads, MFA, over and over we have said that the roads in Ghana are such a death trap. We're looking at roads that are quite dark, so illumination is poor. We're looking at the surface nature of the road itself. We have a lot of potholes. We have unmarked warning signs. So if you are approaching, and a lot of communities are now developing their own road ramps, and nothing is marked. So you just reach it. You either hit your vehicle, or you hit somebody, or you hit against another vehicle, and then bam. So we are dealing with issues that we certainly know what to do, but unfortunately we are looking at law enforcement agencies, and over here I'm looking at the power, the force, the authority of the police, because eventually, if we are looking at the DVLA, I mean, recently we had lecturers here at the University of Cape Coast conducting a research looking at the issue of what goes into the testing regime of the DVLA, and what is actually tested and whether that is enough. If you look at the DVLA's testing regime, they look at visual acuity. So if you look at visual acuity, of course, there are a number of drivers who can tell A from B, but then you also want to examine the issue of the visual field. Somebody's visual acuity may be good, but the visual field, is it good? Who tests that in the first place? We are looking at even testing of color. We are looking at situations where a number of things are not tested. So is visual acuity just enough for somebody to acquire, a driver's license in the first place? And whether MFR, even if an accident occurs, whether we get the opportunity to even speak with drivers. Do we get the opportunity to speak with them? What do they say? And whether we investigate into what they tell us. How did they see another vehicle coming? I guess these are pointers that should be able to give us an idea as a nation on what to do with such vital information.
Okay.
Other than that, tell you what, almost every time we're going to be talking about this, and we're looking at from January to September, almost, that's over 2,000 lives. More than what COVID took away from us in 2020 and 2021. That's chilling indeed, MFA.
Yeah. Well, Raymond and Obi, you've had cause to also lead this Drive Safe campaign that we've been on, for instance. So the media cannot be accused of not highlighting or educating the people, the ordinary Ghanaian, about the safety issues and road safety issues. What then do you think is really the issue? Amma has been talking about some of these testing regimes amongst others. In your road safety campaign drive, for instance, Obi, on Ekosi saying interacting with people in the ordinary Ghanaian, what sense do you get in terms of road safety issues, whether we are actually taking it seriously?
Yeah, really, I mean, it's become a bit boring talking about road safety, because it's disheartening, especially when we know what to do and we are grossly failing to do them. For example, we've talked about our road infrastructure. We've talked about enforcement of our rules. We've talked about, resourcing the agencies responsible to deal with road crashes, in Ghana. And we failed. I mean, the last time I was talking to Seth Kwame, and he makes the point that even the Ghana Road Safety Authority, mind you, it was previously Road Safety Commission. They pushed for them to become an authority so they will have more powers to bite. We've given them that authority status. The story remains the same. So really, I mean, we know the things we would have to do. If it's about education, let's go out there and do it. If it's about enforcement of the laws, let's do them. The only reason why we are unable to do what we have to do is because we do not value human lives.
Okay.
Plain and simple. If we did, I mean, I was looking at the data from 1990 to 2019 data. We have lost over 40,000 Ghanaians. That's enough to fill the Accra Sports Stadium. 40,000 Ghanaians to road accident, not to talk of those who are severely injured. So simply, we just do not value human life. If we did, the effort we put into fighting COVID, we should have seen 10 times that effort, geared towards stopping road accidents, in Ghana. It's terrible, and it become a bit monotonous talking about it. The agencies know what we have to do. There should also be consequences. As we speak, we've had close to 2,000 deaths from road accidents this year alone. The National Road Safety Authority boss is still at post. The MTTD Director General is still at post. Nothing has happened. And so really, what's the consequence for wrongdoing in our country? Until we begin to confront some of these issues head on, we'll be back next year talking about it.
And Raymond is already bored talking about this because he's had cause to lead this Drive Safe campaign. Raymond, hearing that we're losing more, we are hitting almost 3,000, because the last check it was over 2,000, and just last week is 29, and these are the ones who just reported on. I know you're bored, but I'm sure you would want to add to it.
No, road safety is not a political issue. It is not determining who gets elected. It's one of the reasons why it's not taken serious. If people decided that until you fix the problem, we will not vote for you. Until you prevent us from losing lives, we will not vote for you. Until we stop clearing entire villages of people with these numbers we are seeing, we will not vote for you. It will not happen. Let me give you an example. It was when Ebony, the musician, died, that cabinet hurriedly put together a committee.
Did I lose Raymond? Okay, Raymond, I think I just lost Raymond via Zoom. I don't know if I lost my other guests as well. Obi and Amma, are you still with me? I've just lost Raymond, but it's the Editors Forum edition of The Probe here on the Joy News channel. Also, we're on Joy 99.7 FM on Joy Prime. We're also on myjoyonline.com, as well as all our social media platforms. You can also join the discussion. The editors have been giving me their top picks in terms of the big issues for them worth looking into. Amma has been going through unemployment, road crashes, digitalization, and it runs through unemployment and digitalization as well as road crashes as well. But the big one, I'm sure, for the political animals amongst us is the Parliament versus Police debacle, which we'll be getting into shortly once we save more lives in our Drive Safe campaign. Raymond, you were wrapping up on that. It should become a political issue.
So I'm saying that unless we put it on the front burner and decide to use it as one of the reasons to elect or reject the government, this will not go anywhere.
Okay.
And why am I saying so? After Ebony died, we said we had dedicated 1 billion cedis to fix the problem. What are we going to do? Transform the Road Safety Commission into authority and give it some immediate 6.5 million for the commission to scale up its education, sensitization, and training. Request for approval of a proposal by the Ghana Police Service to enable it to deploy traffic camera systems. We see some of them there. Red light and traffic offences ought to be dealt with immediately. and remove disabled vehicles from the road. We also said that we are going to get all of this happening with some 1 billion more for the urban roads and the private of feeder roads to do with road signs, road line markings, traffic signal lights, and crash barriers on our national road network. So we came out with a plan, clear roadmap. Ask yourself today, how much of that has been done?
Okay.
If you pick them one by one, have we decided to fix the problem? Were we just dealing with and for Christ's sake, I actually believe that even those proposals we gave after everybody died were just thinking the small part of the problem. We need to fix the urban transportation system permanently. Until we do that, we will not solve the problem. If this chaos that we have in our system, this system where anybody can drive, any car is on our road, and the guy who's supposed to check it is taking 2 CD, 5 CD to still keep them on the road continues, there is no way we can fix the problem. And we know it. We've been discussing it. The minister knows it. Everybody in this country is aware of it.
Well, it's a good time to wrap up on
partisan issue.
Okay, so
yes,
we all know
it is not done that way. There's no way we'll fix the problem. In fact, if nobody loses their job because we have higher numbers dying, they will not fix it.
Okay.
Because we know the traditional Ghanaian or African politicians is more interested in winning elections. So if anything that's tied to their winning elections is dealt with, they will be serious about fixing the problem.
Okay, well, we'll continue to do our bit as the media and encourage people to drive safe because you never know who it will be. It would either be a relative, a loved one. You ought to keep driving safe and make sure that the road does not continue to become a death trap. And you've heard the editors on that. What we all need to do must be done to ensure that our roads are safe. So I'll move on to our next issue. We'll come to unemployment because it's big for all of us, but this issue about Parliament and the police, I see that Raymond and Obi are big on that as well. So once we've taken one of your big picks, we'll get into their big picks as well, which is the Dampare, IGP Dr. Ekufu Dampare. And is it that he's taking on Parliament? What exactly is this situation? Issues about sustainability. We've seen the number of arrests, what he's done so far since he took over as IGP. But Raymond, or maybe no, I'll start with Obi because you have been talking about this a lot and Okusi is saying. So let's talk about this, and hopefully you don't get dumb paralyzed after this discussion. So let's talk about sustainability. The arrest, we've seen Shatawale and medical amongst others have a taste of it. And tomorrow, Francis Xavier Sosu is supposed to go to the court. We are told he's been served. His handlers are saying he hasn't been served. Parliament has still not released him for interrogation or questioning by the police. He's not attended upon that invitation, amongst others. Generated a lot of talk whether an MP is above the law. Let's talk about it. What really, for you, is this whole issue about Parliament and police?
Yeah, I think we would have to commend the police, as I said earlier, for that breath of fresh air. We've always made the point that one of the things militating against our development as a people is indiscipline. So when we see an era where there seems to be a semblance of discipline, we should all be happy, for what's happening in the Ghana Police Service. And for that, we commend the top management of the police led by the IGP. You mentioned the Shatawale arrest and all of those guys. It sends the right signals. And people were like, okay, so now the IGP is picking celebrities and pastors. Let's see when there are politicians involved, especially members of the ruling party are involved, if the IGP can move in. Then came Francis Xavier Sosu debacle, and then we saw the police move. Article 117 and 118 of the 1992 Constitution are clear. And with your permission, I would read. Article 117 says, civil or criminal process coming from any court or place out of Parliament shall not be served on or executed in relation to the Speaker or member or the clerk to Parliament while he is on his way to, attending at, or returning from any proceedings of Parliament. So it's clear. on his way to, attending at, or returning from any proceedings of Parliament. 118 says, neither the Speaker nor a member of, nor the clerk to Parliament shall be compelled, while attending Parliament, to appear as a witness in any court or place out of Parliament. The Article 1182 says, the certificate of the Speaker that a member or the clerk is attending the proceedings of Parliament is conclusive evidence of attendance at Parliament. So the law is clear. And I think the framers of the Constitution put this to safeguard the concept of separation of powers. Because you know, Parliament is set up to serve as that watchdog of the executive. And if you are not careful, mind you, the police service is not an independent constitutional body properly so called. They are beholden to the executive. So if you are not careful, the executive can hide behind the police service to intimidate members of Parliament and further weaken, you know, the power, the capacity and all of that of the Parliament of Ghana. And that's how come the framers of the Constitution put this in the Constitution, to sort of safeguard Parliament as a body to play their watchdog role and play it well. But there is a way out, in that if the police is minded to want to invite a member of Parliament, arrest a member of Parliament, the clerk of Parliament and all of that, you would have to do so through the Speaker of Parliament, for the Speaker to release that fellow. In the case of Francis Xavier Sosu, I mean, I interviewed him after the demonstration. He had issues about how some of the police officers acted, banging his car and all of that. And he informed me that he would be filing a complaint at the plenary when Parliament is. Which he did. He's done. Absolutely, which he's done. But again, the police also have officially written to the Speaker of Parliament. The Speaker, interestingly, thought, you know, Parliament has reconvened and all of that, and based on 117, 118, he will not be able to release the member of Parliament. The police have done the right thing by moving to court. So let's see what the court says. I think that we don't have to allow this matter to die a premature death. Some have even suggested that the police can move to the Supreme Court for a true and proper interpretation of 117, 118. Because again, if we are not careful, this can be stretched to absurd levels. So for example, if a member of Parliament is leaving Parliament and maybe gets to the National Theatre and knocks down a young man or woman, what would the police do? Would the police say, because he's moving from Parliament, so we would allow the member of Parliament to go? And that's some of the issues that I think the Supreme Court will have to settle for us, so we know the limitations of this particular law and how far we can stretch it. I think it's good for constitutionalism that we are testing the laws. The police have moved to court. Let's see what the court says, and hopefully we'll get a better understanding of the issues. Thankfully, you are a student of law also. So, but I've heard the lawyers also say, Raymond, that in the case that he's just mentioned, so if a member of Parliament commits a crime, for instance, do we have to wait for the Speaker to release such a person? We've heard the lawyers say all that, but this issue, this is not the first time. We've seen some MPs who are being tried in court also. The question for many is, the MPs are not above the law, are they, Raymond?
I don't think they are above the law. I mean, see, at the core of this conversation is abuse of power. It's the mistrust that we have imbued in our system, which makes it impossible for the MP to believe that if the police really want me for some investigation, they mean well, and that they are really doing their job regardless of who is supposed to be controlling them. Because of the history of the police in the Republic and other places, especially on our continent, they have basically been used by the executive to foment trouble, to control their opposition, and to always do what they want anyway. So I get the point that, yes, a member of Parliament cannot be claiming to be somebody who is special if he believes in the rule of law. Okay. But we cannot also, and we know that the entire governance system is supposed to run on separation of powers, but also checks and balances. If we believe in the Montesquieu thinking, it should be possible for an MP to be arrested on certain terms, and it should be very simple, and it should be in the police, their own procedures, protocols clearly dictated, that right from school, when they are learning to be police officers, they know that this is what you go through to arrest an MP, and under what circumstances that should be possible. That we are having this conversation here today tells us that for a very long time we have run the system almost like just as people who want to abuse every law that we have. Now, I still have the belief in some of the police officers in the country. IGP Dan Parry started off on a very interesting note. So do the things that everybody agrees with. Arrest a couple of people here and there. The people that people thought were untouchable are the ones you stuck with. So that when you go to the controversial people will not be so divided on the matter. It is beginning to look like now he's heading to the people that many said these are the people who should be targeting. Members of parliament, members of the executive, and all of that. Let's not forget, there was one time an MTT, it was you at the time, MTTU boss who is dead now, who went to the who arrested the deputy minister and insisted that no matter what happens, I would arrest you because I am actually following the laws of this country. That also has its own problems. It's also because when people get power, small power, they believe that they are untouchable. They believe that they are so much in a very special zone that they should be treated in a very nice way. So it's the abuse of power that's underpinning all of this. And the mistrust in the system that a police officer can do their work without executive influence. If we believe that's possible, then we will allow the police to do their work. If we believe that members of parliament can also do their work without executive seeking to unduly influence the process, in any case, what is wrong with a member of parliament leaving his own people to fight for better roads? Shouldn't that be the concern of everybody there? Is it not the government of the people that should matter to everybody?
But is that a parliamentary duty, Raymond? Can that be classified as a parliamentary duty, for instance?
I mean, that debate can go on, and I mean, I actually feel that. So, what is the job of the MP anyway? Is it only to make laws in parliament? Is the representation possibly extended to what he does on the ground too? So if the MP is actually following up on projects in this constituency, and let's not forget, he is their representative, he is their bishop. If we do our work properly as members of parliament in this country, we'll be having MPs meeting the people consistently and doing more demonstrations with them because they need the problems fixed. I don't know if you get my point.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think that that's even stretching the matter. If we deal with the mistrust and we deal with the abuse of power that's inherent in our system, we will get the police doing their work and we'll get members of parliament also doing their work.
Okay.
Also, there's an important point though. I mean, there are so many people that the police mistreat on our streets every day. I do not see the MP so much interested in the matter like one of their own. There's so much injustice in how the police deals with people, how they maltreat them, how they have no respect for their human rights, and yet it is only when it comes to members of parliament that we feel that this is a heightened matter that requires some form of intervention. I believe if the police get clarification, it will be interesting. But at the core of it is what I've said. If you fix your quest to abuse power, if you fix your quest to entrench the mistrust in the system, you would actually get some of these things happening on marriage.
Okay. Well, Amma, do you get a sense in terms of your interactions on this particular issue, for instance, that the police is out there to make a statement whilst the politicians are also protecting their territory? We've already heard some suspicions from the minority side, for instance, amongst others. They feel that this is a way of the executive using the police to come after them, amongst others. What really is the talk, for instance, among the people that you've been speaking to on your show, for instance?
So MFA, this seems to a number of people like the battle of the TERFs, and the police is on a path of redeeming its image, if you ask me, because over the years, like Raymond rightly said in his preliminary comment on this subject, the notion, and of course there has been a lot of evidence for anybody to conclude that the police system or service has been used to, to shut a lot of people down and silence a number of people and silence a number of institutions. And then we tend to call on the police to enforce the law, to do that which is right. And here we have parliament that promulgates the law, and here we have the police that is supposed to enforce the law. And I think before this demonstration, the MP actually sent a signal that if this is not done, I am going to lead the honorable, people in my constituency to demonstrate However, it possibly did not go the way he wanted. What I'm so excited about this conversation is the fact that it is possibly what we have to guard against, MFR, is a tilting point where we get on to be hearing a lot of political voices or political divide. We don't want to go there. Parliament versus police. And what excites me most, it is the interpretation of 117, 118, where we have to stretch the duties of a member of parliament, and whether this was part of it. It's great that the police is taking such a step, and asking for interpretation, and possibly for the member of parliament to avail himself to answer some questions. So that, for me, that's what excites me, that the police is running to the law, and the parliament is also running to the law. And I guess at this moment, nobody seems to be above the law.
Well, I look forward to the court tomorrow, and I'm sure from the morning.
There is something I think we've all lost sight of. That is the Parliament referring the two police officers to the Privileges Committee. I am thinking that was a bit of a stretch.
Okay.
Because if we are not careful, we might go a long way demoralizing our police officers from doing what they are expected to do. I would have thought that since the police officers don't act out of their own volition, and that they report to a higher authority, maybe inviting the IGP or the minister in charge of the interior would have been a better route than going specifically for the officers involved. I am not too sure that is a proper thing to be done, and we would have to properly, deal with that particular issue and talk about it some more. Okay. But I think we have to be careful where we are getting to. Other than that, we would have a very powerful parliament, and the optics is not looking good from where I see, because I even thought this whole issue could have been managed better than how it's been managed. It seems this therefore everybody showing the other where power lies and all of that does not look good for me. Okay,
well, the police may be on an image redeeming quest at this point, but sustainability, briefly, any of you can touch on that, then we can get into the other issues equally important as well. Issues about sustainability, the quest that the police is on, for instance. Raymond?
This is only sustainable if the executive stay away, if the president, if ministers do not threaten the IGP. And if the IGP is so minded to say, I would leave office if you decide to impede my space and actually cause me trouble in the performance of my duties.
Well, will that happen?
This is that he would leave office. I mean, I think that is honorable. We don't see people do that a lot. But finally, I think that ordinarily, we the people gave power to authority to act in our interest. If we insist that the leadership of the country should not in any way influence or seek to control the current police leadership, they'll stay away. I insist that if we did same for Dom level, a different scenario would have played out by now. It is because mostly we stay back and pretend that these men on their own are superhuman and they can do the work without. And we all know that this is the Republic of Ghana, this is Africa. Our abuse, it is at the height of it. We do it anyhow. We don't respect rule of law. So we have some of these people seeking to influence the process. I am insisting that if we do not protect IGP and the other people who require protection to do their independent work, we will not get anywhere with the current happenings on the ground.
Okay, well, so if we all agree, then I think we've dealt a bit with this issue about Parliament versus the police. Is only just a beginning, because tomorrow we'll see if the MP will be in court, because his handlers, like I said, have mentioned that he's not been served the summons, but the police have also told me, for instance, ACP Kusifuri told me that they've duly served him, but we'll see how it goes tomorrow. I'm sure Ekusi is saying we'll be waiting for that, and then
very much so, very much
course,
so.
We'll get all the details pretty much on that. But unemployment it affects a lot of people, an issue that I'm seeing a lot on our social media platforms now. I'm very happy that Amma raised it first, and people are talking about it, and will tie in perfectly with the recruitment. I've seen that there's a letter that has been written by Searchlight editor to the police on this as to why height disqualifies some of us if we have to join the force, for instance. I see, I'm waiting for that response to see how it goes. But let's talk about it. Amma, you kickstart that for us.
Yes, I will indeed, MFM. I think on the flip side, of course, which was quite, I wouldn't say sensational, but it was quite emotional. And this isn't the first time that we've had this conversation on the internal protocols of the security or the immigration, services, and what they consider, the right height or, marks that we want in the service. But that aside, I guess we've had, very, expert opinion like Colonel Festus Abuaje. We've had Dr. Kwesi and others, and of course Adam Bonham talking about. I guess Adam Bonham has somehow justified that this is key. Every institution and what they require. Interestingly, some of these key points that the security agencies raised as disqualifying candidates, like their height, like other marks, were part, of the requirement, part of the qualification, which means that it isn't something new that just surfaced. We know that in applying for any job, there are the qualifying variables or factors. So people certainly knew about that. But I will go to, the staggering reality of as a people, MFA. I mean, here in Cape Coast, at the fire service recruitment exercise, I wasn't just shocked, but I guess I had a lot of things to reflect on, and especially with the government, policy on free SHS and other interventions that see a lot of people going into the tertiary institution. The question now comes to, where are these people going? I mean, after education, after learning your skill, where are you going? Is the skill set just enough for you to start something? So it has revealed a number of issues that I guess as a nation we need to give attention to. We have a big national security issue regarding youth unemployment, and that should give us an idea of what is happening, especially on issues of security, on issues of crime. We've had consent to talk about the rising, spate of crime in the country, and I think there are lots of global reports that are really looking at the dark side of where we are going as a nation. So I mean, for that's a concern. Again, there are measures, the measures we have put in place previously through NAPCO and others. They have also revealed that these are just window dressing.
NAPCO has ended.
Okay, so I mean, we just entered the month of November. Just the 31st of October, their contract with government, just came to an end, and a number of them have not been renewed by the various institutions that they went to serve with. So you are asking, we seem to have a catalogue of a number of people that are already waiting, and then welcoming these officers who have also done with their service with NAPCO. So we are dealing with a very big issue that we just don't have to be giving political promises, because that's been our bane as a nation. We seem to have some stopgap measures, but these are not permanent. And when they are not permanent, MFO, 2 years, 3 years, we come back to talk about the same problem. And unfortunately, we are not just dealing with the same numbers, or will not be dealing with the same numbers next year. The numbers will triple. The numbers may double. Again, we're also looking at the training of our youth for blue-collar jobs, in the country, and whether this is the right way or the path that we want to chart as a nation. So that's my take on the subject.
Where are the jobs, Philip? Where are they? Do you know?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I think we set up institutions, we set up bureaucracies purportedly to deal with problems, which problems don't get solved. One of such is youth unemployment. And I always say that we don't seem to have control over. So if you take urban traffic, as Raymond alluded to earlier, what is our strategy to deal with urban traffic in urban centers, so like Kumasi, like Accra, and in recent times, secondly, Takrade? There is nothing. I mean, we seem to live our lives to chance. Yes, when it happens, we move on to the next big topic and all of that. No deliberate strategy to want to deal with issues. And I believe that's how come we are where we are today. As we speak, we do not have control to say every year we need to train, for example, 500 humanities graduates. We need to train 1,000 doctors. We need to train 600 engineers. It's as if once you decide as an entrepreneur to set up a university and you look at the market and where the demands are, okay, so a lot of people are interested in law, a lot of people are interested in management. So you create a faculty of law, you set up an engineering faculty, and then you train students. No checks and balances in the system. The institutions set up to do so are asleep.
Yeah.
And you can count the number of universities we have in Ghana. You can possibly count, even by conservative estimate, the number of degrees we churn out every year onto the job market. Who is controlling that space? Well, the point is, the job opportunities out there are not ad infinitum. It is specific. We cannot possibly say we would continuously be creating job opportunities, especially in the public sector, for the number of graduates. There should be some controls.
Yeah.
And if we don't do that, 5 years from now, the situation will be worse. Because now, by conservative estimate, we are churning out plus or minus 250,000 graduates every year. Those are crazy numbers. I mean, the public sector can only at most employ 700,000 people. So where would the rest go to? And especially so when policies of government, both external factors, internal factors, are not allowing the private sector to grow and create the opportunities for the youth. So we need some controls in the system.
Okay.
You don't just get up one day and set up a university and begin training people in business courses and begin training people in law programs. We've gotten to a point where the only technology driven public university is now training more students in the humanities than even engineering. It's just not proper. So we need some checks, we need some controls in the system.
And Raymond is giggling when you said that we are training more law students. I'm sure people setting up law facilities. But we've always heard that education is the key. It doesn't appear that education is the key anymore, because they say we've heard people say they get the key after education, and the padlocks have been changed. They say
it is. I agree with you that it's one of the misleading statements, not deliberately done. But I'm sure our parents really felt that getting more education was going to brighten our chances. The young people who are first class coming out of the various universities will disagree with you. And yes, Obi, I agree. I remember when I was in JHS, one of the points that were being discussed heavily, that we should have 60% science, 40% arts. We have been having that conversation for so many years. It still remains government policy direction in the Republic of Ghana today. 60% science, 40% arts. We have not achieved it. There really are no plans to achieve it. When we complain about even converting some technology institutions like technical universities into virtually what they call it humanities, what they said it is an evolving structure and it will get better. But MFA, let's look at this properly. We can tackle it from every level. But which states, since 2004 or 5, when the national security said unemployment is a national security crisis in this country, and we started the National Youth Employment Program, since that time, virtually every state intervention has been one that is for a short period or an interim measure. So if you like move from the NYPs, we'll get the GDS and all of that. And when today, even in a much more evolved period, after almost 2 decades, we are still discussing exit strategies. When we were supposed to have exit strategies for JIDA and all the other institutions we put in place backward then, the solution, and it might sound like politicizing it, when you spend all your time not properly planning, but only meet problems, when you knew you could fix it, how could we fix it? In 2004, we were convinced that we will get into a youth board by 2020. Forget between 2020. We were convinced we will get into a youth board where the masses of our population will be youthful, we can channel their energies into good use and build our economy with it. But we're supposed to plan for it nicely so that when the numbers become big at the youthful end, we'll give them jobs, we'll get use, we'll put their idle hands into good use. We didn't do that. We basically did all the plans nicely and put it on shelves from NDPC and other groups. We did conferences, we drank tea, we spent quality time talking about it, but not implementing it.
Okay.
At the core of this problem, I believe, is the fact that if you do not grow your economy, you cannot, and I repeat, you cannot create jobs. Let's not pretend that we are going to do metaphysics. This is not what they call rocket science. You need to grow your economy, especially in manufacturing and industry and agri, where people can get the massive jobs to do. In the areas that people are advancing in job giving. My friend told me something barely 2 weeks ago. He says that every young man in the US or the UK will tell you that when they were growing up at 16 or 17, their first job was in a chain store or in a manufacturing or a warehouse somewhere else. Can you tell me what the Ghanaian young people are saying their first jobs are? And how sustainable that's supposed to be. Okay. So we take out the problem and move it on to the next government and pretend we have solved the problem. And only count numbers. Every year we say we have done 1 million, 1.5, and all of those things. You and I know that those are just fleeting jobs that do not go anywhere.
Those who have to do something about it are watching and listening tonight. But you've been talking about the economy. It's a good time to digitize the economy as well. And this week we've been big on it. Whether if we do not digitize our economy, we don't have an economy at all. So let's digitize. Let's talk about digitalization at this point. It was one of the top picks for you, Raymond, as well. But let me start with Amma on this digitalization. This week, the Vice President walked us through the Ghana story so far when it comes to digitalization of our economy. What's your take on it?
Thank you. And I think I'm just going to tie it closely with the subject that is just gone by and whether as a nation we can think of digitizing labor, you know, because I mean, in the core of this discussion is the fact that we seem to be training a number of people for the white collar jobs instead of the blue collar jobs. So what do we do with the available, you know, labor that we don't seem to have the space to contain? Do we export them like Cuba does to their doctors, like we some time ago did with some of our teachers and some of our doctors? So I guess people just leaving and the country really not having any benefit from it. We just have to think about it. Now to the subject. The Vice President says digitization is just the availability of data and interpreting data and making sure that data speaks to a lot of the things that we are doing as a nation. MFA, recently his lecture at the Ashesi University, I guess it grabbed my attention on a number of the interventions that government has put in place since 2017. And I remember some of the interventions in the telecommunications sector, the banking sector, of course the financial sector, if I may have to just be on there, and other areas. Of course, there are so many things that we have to, you know, celebrate as the people, because we seem to have come far. I'm going to be looking at both sides of the coin, and one is the positives. Of course, for many years, decades, we become very comfortable, and of course the Vice President spells out to say that we have not lost sight of the years gone by where if you are directing somebody to a particular place, we are looking for landmarks. So woe betide you if you get there and the blue house is now a yellow house. you just have to find your way home. But now you just go on Google Map and you know exactly where to go without asking anybody for any sign.
It's interesting you mentioned Google Map and not GPS address. The Ghana Post. It's interesting that because most people are not able to use that. But I'll have to rush you through this one. Unfortunately, we're really out of time. So Amma, if you could wrap up, then I could hear the gentleman as well briefly as we count down.
Okay, so I guess one of the areas that we possibly have lost sight of is the rural communities. We are really trumpeting a lot of the things that government is doing, especially digitizing the economy.
Okay.
We are looking at the rural economy, or the rural people that seem to have been left off the hook. We are sending laptops, we are sending other machines for them. Have we considered data? Is the internet available? And is it affordable for such communities? I guess we haven't looked at that yet, and it's a problem. MFO, for the sake of time, let me just
apologies, Amma. Thank you. Raymond is a fact checker. I'm sure he's been fact checking since then. Raymond, under a minute, are you able to speak on digitalization?
No, I mean, the quick point I'm making here is that this is not. See, why are we making this look like? And I said it's the Marshall Plan for Ghana. What we're making it look like is the fanfare around it, is the publicity around. We are way behind times. We just get on with it and make sure that these solutions are there for people to use, makes life easier for people. I put on Facebook that until I get the EC or NIA writing to me and telling me that I have an option to register online or do it via a phone call, I do not really think that many of these stuff would actually end up with actual solutions.
Okay.
Let's make sure people get real solutions at home that can improve their lives. That's really what the big deal is.
Okay. Well, we may be way behind time in terms of digitalization, but Obi, you were there. You sat through that fireside conversation. Do you think that better late than never? What exactly are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think it's we all agree as a people that this is something we need. I mean, we've gotten to the stage in our development trajectory that we need to digitalize. It's very important.
Okay.
And everybody from any side of the divide you speak to, in principle, agrees to that. I think that the reaction to this should not be the usual partisan debate we normally have about some of these big ideas in our country. We should look, and I think Bright Simmons wrote a very beautiful article, and he makes the point that yes, beyond the fanfare, beyond the razzmatazz, we should just sit down and make sure that this does not become another procurement dig for a partisan or a political connected person somewhere. We should make sure that if we want to develop an app, we bring all our big brains around the table, ask them, this is what we need to do, make sure you do it for us at a cheaper cost.
Okay.
Not just the other avenues where we create for people.
Unfortunately, senior journalists, will have to end it here. But I'm sure that Amma is the one that interviewed the president and when this Cape Coast Airport issue came up. And thankfully, Amma is with us. Amma, have Cape Coasters forgiving the president after that apology?
It's not just a matter of forgiving. It's looking for results. I guess the conversation has been how not just the president, but politicians have taken, the people for granted. The president's apology was taken in good course, but then to us as a people, and of course this is to all Ghanaians, the question is, so did you just promise for a vote, and now this is the time for analysis? You remember that before the campaign launch of the NPP, right in my studio, the president did a great analysis to say that because of factors A, B, C, I don't think that the people of Cape Coast need an airport. And then within 24 hours, we had the vice president, telling us that we've got good news for you. We are bringing you an airport and we are bringing you a harbour. The president has apologized because on that platform he said, let me clarify this. We didn't promise you a harbour. But then the harbour was contained in it. So the major concern now, MFR, is it's like a business. You brought a contract. I signed a contract. It's time for you to deliver, and it's just an apology. And the fact that it's not feasible at this time. So that's where we are in the conversation.
Thank Thank you very much, Amma Bawa, ATL, host of ATL Morning Show in Cape Coast, Raymond Akwa, JoyNews Research Desk Head, and then Philip Osebonsu, award-winning ecosystem host here on Asempa. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. It's been a wonderful evening. Thank you so much. For our radio audience, we have A Walk with Jesus up next. Many thanks for your company on behalf of the entire team. Have a good evening. I am MF Apao.